A war could start over an island most people can't find on a map, and it could hit your life before the first missile lands. Because the real target isn't land, it's the world's supply of advanced chips. The island is Taiwan, and Taiwan is the fuse on the most dangerous rivalry of the 21st century. Here's the part most people miss. This is not only about flags, this is about choke points. Choke points in technology, choke points in shipping, choke points in energy, and choke points decide who gets rich and who gets squeezed. So let me make you a promise. By the end of this video, you'll know the 3 fastest signals that a crisis is moving from tension to timer, and you'll understand why a blockade can be more dangerous than an invasion. Because a blockade can break the world without a single beach landing. Let's start with the origin story. In 1949, China's civil war ended with 2 governments. The communists held the mainland. The defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan. Both sides claimed to be China. For decades, the split stayed frozen. Then Washington made a move. In 1972, President Nixon landed in Beijing. The US wanted leverage against the Soviet Union. The door opened. Trade followed. Factories followed. China became the world's workshop. Cheap labor, massive scale, fast learning. And the US got what it wanted. Lower prices, higher profits, full shelves. But that deal had a hidden cost, because the workshop learned how to build everything. And then it learned how to build the future. Now fast forward, China is no longer just a factory. China is a rival. And the rivalry has one obvious pressure point: Taiwan. Taiwan has about 23 million people, but its real power is silicon. Taiwan produces a majority of the world's chips, and it produces most of the most advanced chips. Those are the chips that run AI. Those are the chips that run next-gen weapons. Those are the chips that run the global economy's nervous system. If those fabs stop, the world does not adapt. The world stalls. Car factories pause. Phone launches slip. Data centers ration capacity. Defense contractors hit delays. Prices jump. Shortages spread. And governments panic. So, ask yourself a simple question. If you wanted leverage over the US, what would you want? A bigger navy, or the ability to freeze global technology? That's why Taiwan is not a side story. Taiwan is the main event. Now, add geography. Taiwan sits on the edge of the Pacific. It sits on the first island chain. From China's view, that chain is a barrier that can trap China's navy close to home, a barrier that can watch every ship that leaves, a barrier China does not control. Beijing wants that barrier gone, or better, owned. Washington wants that barrier not owned by Beijing. And that is why the Taiwan problem does not cool down. It heats up. China says Taiwan is part of China. China says reunification is inevitable. China says force is an option. Taiwan says it is self-governed. Taiwan says force would be catastrophic. The US keeps its promise deliberately unclear. That ambiguity is not an accident. It is designed to deter both sides. To deter Beijing from attacking, and to deter Taipei from declaring something irreversible. But ambiguity does not mean inaction. The US sells weapons. The US builds partnerships. The US runs exercises. The region watches the sky because the warning signs are visible. In late 2000-2005, multiple reporting cycles described surges in Chinese maritime activity. Taiwan tracked increases in ships and aircraft near the island. Analysts warned that drills can double as rehearsal. The point is simple. China can surround Taiwan quickly. China can raise the cost of outside help. And China can test a response without firing first. That matters because you don't need to invade to win. Sometimes you only need to choke. So let's talk about the blockade problem. An invasion is loud. An invasion is obvious. An invasion forces everyone to react. A blockade can be quieter. A blockade can be customs enforcement. A blockade can be inspections. A blockade can be live fire zones. A blockade can be maritime safety. And each step can be framed as routine. Until ships stop moving. Then insurance prices explode. Then shipping schedules collapse. Then markets panic. Then pressure shifts to one question: who can endure longer, Taiwan or the countries that depend on Taiwan's chips? Now you might think the US would never allow that, but that's exactly the dilemma. If the blockade is partial, what is the threshold? How much disruption triggers a military response? One container delay, 2 weeks of delays, a full shutdown. Every step is a test, and every test is a chance for miscalculation. This is why Taiwan is not a future issue, it is a daily risk calculation. Now here's the twist. Taiwan is only the first choke point. The second choke point is even bigger: the South China Sea. A huge share of global shipping passes through it. Energy passes through it. Food passes through it. Containers pass through it. If that sea turns dangerous, the world feels it in weeks. Not years, weeks. China claims broad control there. China draws sweeping lines on maps. China builds artificial islands. China expands runways. China adds radar. China adds missiles. Neighbors feel the pressure. Vietnam feels it. The Philippines feels it. Malaysia feels it. Brunei feels it. And the US answers, patrols, alliances, exercises, freedom of navigation operations. So the real contest is not who is good, it is who can control the routes. Routes of shipping, routes of energy, routes of chips, because routes are power, and power invites risk. Now let's talk about what power looks like today. America's power is loud. Bases across the Pacific, bases in Japan, bases in South Korea, partnerships across the region, carrier strike groups, a global security network. China's power can be quieter. Industry, supply chains, trade gravity, infrastructure deals, credit, and then the scary part, materials. Because modern technology depends on weird inputs. Inputs most people never think about. Gallium, germanium, rare earths, high-purity chemicals, specialized machine tools. These are not nice to have. These are, your tech doesn't ship without them. So modern power is not only missiles, it's bottlenecks. And bottlenecks can be pulled like levers. Now this rivalry has a second layer, a technology war. Because chips are not only products, chips are capability. The country that leads in chips leads in AI. The country that leads in AI leads in autonomy. The country that leads in autonomy leads in surveillance. The country that leads in surveillance leads in control. So when you hear export controls, or chip bans, or restrictions on advanced machines, you are not hearing trade drama. You are hearing a struggle over the next military balance, and a struggle over the next economic balance. That is why the fight is so intense, because both sides believe they are protecting their future. Now let's be brutally clear. This is also why the risk of escalation is high. Because when both sides fear losing the future, they stop taking small losses. They start taking bigger bets. So what does a win look like? It might not look like an invasion. It might look like a blockade. It might look like accidents at sea. It might look like drones and cyber attacks. It might look like ports slowing down. It might look like fabs going dark for maintenance. It might look like sanctions. It might look like counter-sanctions. And while governments argue, your life changes. Your next phone costs more. Your next car takes longer. Your job becomes less secure. Inflation returns through the back door. And the worst part? Most people won't connect it to Taiwan. They'll just feel the squeeze. So now we get to the heart of the story. Why is this so hard to solve? Because both sides have red lines. Beijing sees Taiwan as sovereignty. Washington sees Taiwan as deterrence. Taiwan sees itself as survival. And none of those can be traded away easily. Add nationalism. Add pride. Add military planning. Add domestic politics. Then add one more ingredient: time. Because time changes the balance. If China believes time favors it, it pressures more. If the US believes time favors China, it resists more. That creates a trap. Both sides feel urgency. Urgency creates risk. Now, let's make this even more real. Imagine 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, a political crisis on the island, a speech, a referendum, a symbolic move. Beijing responds with drills. Shipping hesitates. Markets slide. Everyone waits for the next step. Scenario 2. A gray zone campaign. Harassment at sea. Drones. Cyber attacks. Mysterious disruptions. Plausible deniability. Constant pressure. No single event big enough to start a war, but enough to exhaust the target. Scenario 3. A partial blockade. Inspections. Closed zones. Safety corridors. Shipping slows. Insurance spikes. Factories around the world begin to feel it. This scenario is dangerous because it dares everyone to escalate. And escalation is a ladder. Once you climb, it is hard to climb down. Now here is what makes this rivalry different from past rivalries. The world is tangled in both economies. The US and China are competitors, but they are also deeply connected. That connection reduces the chance of total war, but it increases the chance of slow conflict. Slow conflict is easier to start. Slow conflict is harder to end, and slow conflict can still break your life. Because the damage comes through prices and jobs, not through headlines. So how do you know when the timer is starting? Here are the 3 fastest signals. Signal 1. A shift from drills to sustained presence. Not a weekend exercise. A new normal. Ships and aircraft staying. Rotations that never end. Signal 2. Legal and administrative moves. New inspection rules. New maritime safety notices. New temporary restrictions. Anything that changes shipping behavior without firing a shot. Signal 3. Financial stress and logistics. Insurance rates. Freight prices. Delivery times. When those jump, it means the private sector is scared. And the private sector is often the first to react. Because money moves faster than governments. So if you watch nothing else, watch those. Because they show intent, they show preparation, and they show pressure building. Now step back and see the full board. Taiwan is a chip bottleneck. The South China Sea is a shipping bottleneck. Strategic minerals are a manufacturing bottleneck. Bottlenecks are power. And power is temptation. Temptation creates tests. Tests create accidents. Accidents create escalation. That is the chain. And that is why this rivalry matters more than any headline. Because the first blink won't be on a battlefield. It will be in markets, in supply chains, in prices, in your everyday life. Now let's end where we began. A war could start over an island most people can't find. But the consequences are everywhere. In your phone, in your car, in your job, in your grocery bill. Because Taiwan is not far away. Taiwan is already in your pocket. Now here's the uncomfortable question. If the world depends on this one place so much, why wasn't it protected better? The answer is simple. The world optimized for cost, not for resilience. Companies chased efficiency. Just-in-time supply chains, single-source suppliers, the cheapest factory, the fastest shipping lane. That system works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it fails fast. So governments are now trying to build redundancy. New fabs outside Taiwan, new supply routes, new stockpiles. But this is not a switch you flip. Chip fabs take years. Workforce training takes years. Equipment supply takes years. So the world is still exposed. Right now. That exposure is what makes the crisis so dangerous. Because if you are exposed, you feel pressure. And pressure shapes decisions. Now you can see the strategic logic. If China can create enough fear, investment shifts. Supply chains shift. Allies hesitate. Markets punish risk. And without firing, Beijing can still gain leverage. That is the gray zone strategy. Make the target expensive to defend. Make support politically painful. Make the status quo unstable. So the other side starts negotiating. Now flip it. What does the US want? The US wants deterrence. Deterrence is not peace. Deterrence is the price of aggression being too high. That is why you see more exercises. That is why you see more coordination. That is why you see more weapons sales. Not because anyone wants a war, but because everyone fears losing without a war. Now you understand the paradox. Both sides say they want stability. Both sides take steps that look provocative. Because stability is not free. it is enforced. And enforcement looks like pressure, so the tension is baked in. The only question is how it breaks, slow or sudden. And in a world of choke points, slow can still be brutal, because slow means long uncertainty. Long uncertainty kills investment. It kills planning. It kills confidence. And confidence is what keeps economies alive. So when people say, "This is far away," they are thinking in geography. They should be thinking in supply chains, because supply chains connect you to everything. Now, one last reality check. This conflict is also psychological. Each side wants the other side to doubt itself, to doubt its allies, to doubt its endurance. Because if doubt wins, power shifts without a shot. That is why every incident matters. A ship collision, a downed drone, a cyber attack on a port, a sudden export restriction. Each is a test. Each is a message. Each is a push on the edge. So the best way to understand the next decade is simple. Stop thinking in borders. Start thinking in bottlenecks. Bottlenecks in chips, bottlenecks in shipping, bottlenecks in energy, bottlenecks in materials. And then ask, who can threaten bottlenecks faster? And who can protect them longer? Because the winner in the 21st century may not be the country with the biggest army. It may be the country that controls the most switches. Now we're back. So who wins? The Navy with alliances or the factory with leverage? Here's the honest answer. There is no clean win. There are only trade-offs. And the most likely outcome is not one dramatic day. It is a long period of pressure. A long period of smaller shocks, more restrictions, more retaliation, more decoupling, more rerouting, more cost. So when you hear decoupling, translate it. It means things get more expensive. It means supply becomes less predictable. It means companies carry more inventory. It means governments subsidize strategic industries. It means taxes, deficits, or inflation pick up the bill. So even without war, this rivalry can still feel like war. In the form of costs, in the form of volatility, in the form of uncertainty. That's why the blockade scenario is so scary. Because it is a lever that creates pain everywhere. And pain creates political decisions. Now, if you want a single mental model, use this. The 20th century was about controlling territory. The 21st century is about controlling flow. Flow of chips, flow of oil, flow of containers, flow of data, flow of money. And the most valuable positions on Earth are the places that can stop the flow. That is why Taiwan matters. That is why the South China Sea matters. That is why minerals matter. That is why ports matter. That is why cables and satellites matter. Because modern life is a river, and choke points are dams. So keep your eyes on the signals. Sustained presence near Taiwan. Administrative rules that change shipping behavior. Insurance and freight spikes that show fear is spreading. Because those are the early warnings, not the speeches. Not the headlines. The money moves first. The ships move next, and only then do politicians catch up. So the next time someone says, this is a distant geopolitical story, remember this. Your phone, your car, your job, your prices, they all depend on a tiny piece of silicon and a handful of sea lanes. And that is why this rivalry is the main story. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is connected to everything. And because the world cannot afford the choke points to close. But that does not mean they won't try.